The grace and peace of God the Father and of our brother Jesus Christ and the all-embracing love of the Holy Spirit be with you all. Welcome to you all as we join together today to celebrate the incredible life of Stephen Tower. It is our unique relationship with Steve and his family that brings us to this place today to pay tribute to his remarkable life. And we're also here to honor his memory, to support his family in this incredible time of loss. On behalf of his family, I want to thank you all for coming. Your presence is important to them, and your being here is a testimony of your love for Steve and for his family. This is a time of incredible sadness for those of us who can no longer see the physical presence of Steve. And as hard as this might be, as hard as it is for those of us in grief, it is also a time of joy for those who, on the other side of life, can see him. And it is also a time of joy for him. We ourselves cannot help but think of him as gone, about how powerfully he is just not here today physically. And what brings us together here today is our sure comprehension of his lovingness. And the surest thing we know from the Gospels is that God is love. And when I think about my time with Steve, and when I think about his life, my goodness, wasn't he just the perfect embodiment of what God wanted us all to be? And as I think and talk about love, I know we usually think of that as being felt in joyous times, but love obviously can be felt in sorrow. For it is the deepest of all connections, this love. And sometimes that makes this love in times of grief the hardest to bear. This love which Steve lived is a uniting bond to all of us now. We can feel love, and when we do feel that love, we experience God. And so this love of God, which Steve demonstrated and lived so well and so fully, is it not so palpable that we can almost taste it? We can almost reach out and feel it. His love was thick, almost thicker than a Guinness, almost thicker than that hair. And that's all I will say about his incredible head of hair. So we know in our hearts how valuable that love is that he lived, because it permeates us now and makes us one in our joy with him. At the heart of the Christian message is a very simple injunctive that we must love one another. For the essence of God, as I mentioned, is love. And the power of that God is the power of our soul, the power of our spirit, and the power of our own lives. And how we do that is spelled out in Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. These are the words that I feel lived out in real life for us and gave true 21st century meaning in the life of Stephen, because he lived them so well. These words are as follows: set your mind on the higher gifts. And now I'm going to put before you the best way of all. Though I command languages, both human and angelic, if I speak without love, I am no more than a gong booming or a cymbal clashing and crashing. And though I have the power, prophecy, to penetrate all mysteries and knowledge, and though I have all faith necessary to move mountains, if I am without love, I am nothing. Though I should give away to the poor all that I possess, and even give up my body to be burned, if I am without love, it will do me no good whatsoever. Love is always patient and kind. It is not jealous. Love is not boastful or conceited. It is never rude, never seeks its own advantage. It does not take offense or store up grievances. Love does not rejoice at the wrongdoing, but finds its joy in the truth. It is always ready to make allowances, to trust, to hope, and to endure whatever comes, because love never comes to an end. I thank you, Captain, for showing us how much joy those words, well lived, can bring. Steve touched so many lives in the world of being a firefighter, and he touched those lives in his work and lifetime as a firefighter, not just with the direct people that he saved, but also on the larger scale as a training captain. His time as a firefighter, a captain, as a true leader and mentor was as a pebble dropped in a pond. And his knowledge, his experience, his wisdom, more importantly, his calmness under pressure and coolest of cool attitudes sends ripples outward to providers that are still working today, still saving lives from what they learned from Stephen. Let us pray. O God, who said, as long as you did it for one of these, my children, you did it for me, grant a fitting reward for your fireman who has given his time and his energy for the good of others. To him who gave up his rest at all hours of the day and night, grant eternal rest. To him who has answered his final alarm on earth, grant a place of refreshment, joy, and peace. Amen. I'm now going to ask for some very special people that knew Stephen and knew him well to come and share some memories of his remarkable life. I'll now ask Bill Hillard to please come and share.
I am Bill. As he said, my wife and I have been very fortunate and blessed and honored to have Steve cross our path in life, just like so many of you here. Steve had a motto. That motto was, treat everyone as you wish to be treated. He lived that motto almost every day. Every day of his life. See, I met Steve working at Bass Pro. And during those times, I got to tell you, there's so many times he knew he had to get out of that archery department to get home to Nancy. But he would never shortchange a single person that came in there to get their bow worked on, because that's who he was. When I found out Steve was a fly fisherman and hadn't gone fly fishing in a number of years, I immediately said, hell, I'll go fly fishing with you. I haven't done it in years in myself. And for that, I do have to apologize to Nancy, because that led into him and I taking a fly tying class. And of course, that class led into an intense obsession with tying flies. Of course, I encouraged it, but for that, Nancy, I do apologize. Steve and I, and along with a few others, began what was called man crafting, as we were tying all types of bug creations to try to catch try to catch trout. Steve was actually tying flies, though, not for the fish, but for the fishermen around him. And let me tell you, those flies are absolutely amazing. For those of you who have never seen Steve fish, I'm going to paint you a quick picture of it and what he looked like on the water. Separate from him being, the shoe-in for the cover of Outdoor Magazine, GQ edition. You see, when Steve approached a river or stream, he was immediately scouting his entrance point and trying to figure out where to do it. He was also looking along the bank to try to figure out the best bug to mimic that day. When he entered the water, you barely saw a faltering step as he made his way to that one location that he thought was going to be the spot. As he slowly stripped the line from the reel and began casting, you could see his eyes focus to the location that he thought was going to be perfect. As he raised his arm back and forth, you could see the line moving gently through the air, creating those iconic arcs you always see. Now, his back cast left a little something to be deserved, but his forward cast was always purposeful. He would spend time casting to every single part of the river around him, trying to pick a fight with a trout. If the trout weren't biting, he would then move slowly down the river, barely a faltered step in the rocks, to get to the next section and start the whole systematic process over again. But when the fish were biting, my God, he was amazing to watch. As he put tension on that line and guided that fish into the net, it was just an amazing sight to see. And when he was grabbing that fish out of the net and unhooking him, the smile that was on his face, whether it was a 2-inch fish or an 18-plus fish, he enjoyed every bit of it. And finally, letting that fish go. I've learned a lot that you can tell a man. You can learn a lot about a man by the way he fishes and the way he's in the water casting away. And the way Steve fished is the way he lived his life. He was always sure-footed. He knew himself, what he was doing, and where he was going. The way he tied flies, picked that one fly to catch a trout, chose the rod and reel for the stream. It was always him picking the right tool for the right job. His back cast, as I said, needed some help, but as his cast forward, as I said, it was purposeful. And that was Steve in life. He never looked back. He looked forward and moved forward. He learned as much as he could from his mistakes, but always looked and moved forward. Steve was confident and determined fisherman, and we all know it, that's how he was in life too. From the first day he saw Nancy, he said right off the bat he was going to marry her, and he did. And all the way up to working for the fire department, becoming a captain, and a captain again. When the fish were not biting, he could adjust. Now we all know Steve wasn't 100% flexible in life, but when he needed to, he could reevaluate, change his path for the outcome that he wanted. When he landed a fish in the net, it was as Steve following through what he set out to do. And Steve did finish what he started. When a big fish or a chub was on the line, he always found the happiness in it. And he always found the happiness in the small things in life to the big adventures. And letting the fish go at the end of it was his way of saying thank you and getting ready for the next adventure. So if you take a moment right now and think about it, Steve did teach everyone here those lessons: to be confident, sure-footed, purposeful, thankful, finish what you started, and so much more. But you see, the magic that happened when we weren't looking was that when Steve was helping you, mentoring you, being a friend, and getting you to try new things, he was actually really teaching you those life lessons. And the funny enough thing is that those are the same lessons that will make you all a great fisherman. How to stand in the river of life sure-footed, use the right tools, cast looking forward with patience, determination, and confidence, and to always be excited with what comes your way. Steve will always be my greatest fishing partner who can never be replaced. Thank you, Steve, for everything he has taught all of us.
Take a deep breath as we ask another friend of Stephen's to share some memories. It'll be Steve Miller.
It is with a heavy heart that I stand before you to share, reflect upon, and honor our fallen brother. Linda, Nancy, Mark, Derek, Carrie, Garrett. I have spent the last few days searching from my heart for the right words to speak. I know Steve didn't want all this. This is typical Steve. Sorry. Son, brother, cousin, uncle, husband, father, firefighter, co-worker. These are some of the titles, some of the names that Steve was referred to throughout his life. But there's one name that we can all refer to him as, common bond, friend. He was a friend to all. I've been blessed to know Steve since April of 1987. We spent 8 weeks commuting to Concord to fire standards and training for the recruit school, as they did not have a fire academy back then. There were many mornings where we'd get up, drive up there, drive back saying, okay, we're done, this is it, this is crazy, we can't do this. Only to tell each other, see you in the morning. Yep, do it again. During those times of riding up and riding back, I got to know his family through him, his brothers, his mother. Got to know Nancy through him as well. When they got married, that was a magical time. Steve was so happy, so proud. I could tell right away Steve loved his family. As I observed, he cared for his mother throughout the years, always speaking highly of you, Linda. I have a story about how the infamous Soul Man dance started that we saw in the movie yesterday. It was at his wedding. Stephen, being Stephen, didn't want the traditional mother-son dance, so they broke out the shades. And being the Blues Brothers was one of his favorite movies, broke out in that dance, Soul Man, with his mother. Very unique. I will never forget that. And that day, as I said earlier, when he married the love of his life, he was so happy. He knew he was blessed. And soon, I watched his family grow. 2 wonderful children he always held close to his heart. He got involved with their lives from an early start, coaching, Little League, football, and also wanting to teach them proper gun safety, and that purchasing them a BB gun. And I can remember one Sunday morning, Steve getting a call at the fire station. And it's something about a postman, Carrie, Garrett, and a pellet gun. I will never forget that. Steve also enjoyed hobbies, and he made them a family hobby. One of which was building model rockets and launching them. Well, reminds me of another instance at the firehouse where Steve received a call. Somehow a rocket engine ended up with Carrie, and Carrie and the rocket engine was sitting in Mark Boyd's office. He laughed at these things. He laughed them off. He said, kids will be kids. He said they grow up too fast. And when my daughter was born, he gave me some of the best advice anybody could ever give a new parent. He said, Steve, spend as much time as you can with your child. They'll be grown up before long. Carrie, I know he's told you that, but I'm going to tell you the same damn thing. Spend as much time as you can with that child. You're going to mold that child. That child will grow up. That child is going to be very grateful. That child will have many blessings. Steve also enjoyed hunting, as we all know, and fishing. There's also many tales of Camp Whack-'em, which I really can't say here in mixed crowd. I apologize. We had fun. We did. There were times where I wasn't able to come up and make it to go hunting. And Steve would always talk to me, reach out, tell me, hey, we got this big deer this year. You should have been there. Rub it in. One thing about Steve, he was always very proud, not so much of himself, but always of the other person. He didn't want to get the biggest buck in the woods, the biggest bear. He didn't want to catch the biggest fish in the river or the pond. Steve wanted the other person to catch it. And that's where Steve got the deepest satisfaction, watching the other people soar. And he carried that on as a training captain in the fire department. He trained young firefighters, as Bill had mentioned, the good analogy of a ripple in a pond. His effect is reaching out to different parameters. Steve has taught me a lot in life. He's taught me a lot in my career, and I try to carry that with me. I will think about Steve a lot when I go back to work and I'm mentoring new employees. He was an excellent instructor, and his warm smile, that warm smile that you could see in the pictures, both he and Nancy shared that warm smile. That was a happy, warm, loving smile. And the pictures that he'd send me when him and Nancy took trips, he was very blessed and fortunate. Nancy traveled, he went. He may have gone on his own adventure, but there are plenty of things he and Nancy did together. It's a couple's dream to retire and go and travel. That's a blessing. Well, I was jealous as hell of those damn fish he'd send pictures of. Steve always took the time to listen. Student, co-worker, friend, total stranger to him. I've heard stories of him dealing with angry customers and how he was able to calm them down and befriend them and still talk to them. And that friendship has grown, Sean. I'm part of the family. As I said, Steve's persona was defined by his smile. That kind of smile that really spoke the following words. Come in, sit down, put your feet up. What can I get for you? Very hospitable smile. Steve wouldn't ask anyone for help, but he'd always be the first one to lend a hand. You needed anything, he was there. He was the first one to step up. He was the first one to round troops. Hey, we have to help so-and-so. We have to do this. He was the last one to ask for help. And I have one reference to that. The deck. I also want to point out, Steve was very close to my family, my daughter. And on the day I buried my father, Steve noticed my daughter sobbing. And he took her in a corner, and with a matter of minutes, had her smiling and laughing. And she was kicking his ass at rock, paper, scissors. As we leave this service today, please let us all take a piece of Steve's yearning to make a difference in this world with us. Let's honor his memory by us ourselves going out and making a difference among us and others we encounter. Steve has placed an imprint on all our hearts. Hold on to his memories. Please keep them alive. I will leave you with this. If you see a cardinal, know Steve is visiting you at that point. Steve, my friend, rest peacefully. Watch over us all until we meet again.
Now I'm going to ask Uncle Don to come and share a reading.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Don Nathaniel. Stephen Walter Tower was born July 24th, 1966. My wife Kathy and I were made godparents right away of Stephen, and we were thrilled about this. We weren't married then, but we got married in October 1st, 1966. A year and a half later, Kathy and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona in January 13th, 1968, and we've been there ever since. When Steve was 15, he visited us first this summer. It was quite a highlight for us, as we never had children. We had careers and never found the time. Anyway, we took off time from our jobs. My wife was in X-ray. I was a deputy with Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. We took Steve to Disneyland. Steve had the time of his young life. He loved everything high and fast for the rides. He especially loved the log, I think they call it the log jam. But he tired of Disneyland real quick. There's nothing high and fast. So we ventured over to Knott's Berry Farm that had roller coasters. Steve saw those and went ballistic. His comment was, "Come on, Uncle Don, let's go ride this one." Not liking heights, even though I took flying lessons in college, I went with him. My wife, however, stayed firmly planted on the ground. After riding everything high and fast, we went to a hotel in the area, saving Six Flags for the next day. The next day, Six Flags had the Colossus, the highest wood-structured, fastest roller coaster in the land. We rode this one twice. There was a second roller coaster that was steel and had a corkscrew in it. This one really blew me away. Steve enjoyed that one even more after riding it twice. After riding other rides in Six Flags, we left and went home, driving back to Glendale, Arizona. I was heavy into photography, and Steve developed an interest in it. I was also a fly fisherman. I taught Steve the 10-2, taught him how to cast, and by gosh, he got good at it. He'd look back and he'd see it unfold, and right at the end that it unrolled, he'd snap it forward. Perfect fly castings. I took him to a few rivers and lakes around the area, and he got into it really, really fast. He outfished me every time. I decided to, I took him to Lee's Ferry. Lee's Ferry is on the Colorado River, just below Glen Canyon Dam, outside of Page, Arizona. We hired a guide with a boat, and went out, and Steve got right into it. I think it was his first cast. He hooked a huge rainbow trout. Oh, that was so exciting to him. Steve hooked some other rainbows and thoroughly outfished me. Steve was a good kid who, at the age of 15, always gave 150% of himself to whatever he was doing. As he grew into manhood, he never changed, always given 150% of himself. Steve had an infectious personality about him to his friends, and he had everything he did was 150%. He became a full-time fireman with the Goffstown Fire Department, raising himself to the rank of captain. He worked 30 years and retired, going over to Bass Pro, where he flourished as a fishing expert. I would receive phone calls from him telling me, "Hey, Uncle Don, I'm in Idaho on the Snake River. Come on up and go fishing with me." I'm not sure, but maybe Bass Pro sponsored him on this trip. I don't know. But he fished a lot. He wound up tying his own flies, which is no easy feat. Working on a number 22 fish hook, tying a fly. I got quite a few of those flies. I still use them. Steve was 150% on everything he did. Steve became interim fire chief for Goffstown Fire and made many improvements. Again, when the new chief was appointed, Steve slid into the position of captain of training. Steve was the type of officer who would do everything his recruits and staff were expected to do. I've taken that I think it was CPAP test, the one with the rolled up fire hose strapped to your back. I climbed a fire ladder, and at the top was a bell, and you had to ring the bell. That 80-pound hose seemed heavier the higher up the ladder you went, and then you had to come down. Last week, Steve went through that test with his people and paid the ultimate price. Steve was too young. He will be missed by all. I've been asked to read a poem by Lieutenant James B. Clark, 1957-2013. They count on you. The fire lieutenant looked at the new recruits, the clean turnouts and shiny boots. He looked at them so eager and new, but in an emergency would know what to do. They'll need a level head and a steady hand. Most of all, they'll need to follow a command. You have, he said, chosen a noble profession. Keep your eyes open. Each call has a lesson. Just being there is not enough. Learn from experience when the going gets tough. Indecision will be your downfall. The worst decision is no decision at all. You go in when they come out. You have to act fast, no room for doubt. Protect the young, the old, and the handicapped. They count on you. You can count on that. How could he know if they were listening to what he had to say? How could he know it would end this way? They were just doing what they were taught. Probably never gave it a second thought. When they died like heroes later that year, with those words still echoing in their ears, you go out when they come in. You have to act fast, no room for doubt. Protect the old, protect the young, and the old, and the handicapped. Thank you.
Now ask Adam Tower, nephew of Stephen, to come and share some words.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I just wanted to start off by thanking all the different fire departments from around the state that helped make all this happen. Not sure how else it would have been able to happen, but appreciate everything that you guys have been doing. No, Steve is probably looking down on all of us here, all hissy, knowing that there's this much attention brought to him, but here we are anyway, so he's gonna have to deal with it. My uncle was an inspiration to many in the Goffstown community and to many more, as seen by the overwhelming support of those that came to his wake last night. I always knew that he had gotten along with everyone, but did not know exactly how many hearts he had touched throughout the years. To me, Steve was not just an uncle, he was much more. With everything that we have been through my life, he has been more of a father figure to me than an uncle. He's also been one of the best friends that anyone could ever ask for. Besides my father, Derek, Uncle Mark, he is the one who taught me everything that I need to know about archery, which, as a number of you may know, has been a passion of mine for about half my life now. He would always watch, make sure everything that I was doing form-wise was always on point, because he always wanted to make sure that I was going to be the best archer I possibly could. And he would only ask me once to fix something, and only once, because otherwise I would feel the smack of an arrow on the backside of my leg. Growing up, we were always close, but when I started working with him at Bass Pro Shops, that's when we grew the closest. When I first started, he was the one that always sat down with me to teach me everything and really go over everything that I needed to know to be able to learn how to fix archery equipment and teach people how to shoot properly. Every time that we worked together, there was never a downtime. Whenever the store would be slow, he would always find something to do, whether it be cleaning the dust off the boards on the bottom of all the shelves, or just filling up backstock from out back. He could never stop working, and I'm sure that everyone that has worked with him admired his work ethic. The best thing about working with him for the 2.5 years I was there was just the constant laughter that happened. He never made work feel like work. When I would look at the schedule and see that I was working with him, it would just make me so happy and really wanted to go to work. He made work fun. When we knew one of us would be in, we would buy each other coffees, even when nobody asked each other. Even when he'd have 3 coffees lined up on the counter from different customers, which happened often, because he made a lot of good friends, he would finish off the one he already had and started on the next one and just kept a go. Although working with Steve was a blast, the best times I had with him was on the archery range at Goffstown Fish and Game. This is where all the best memories were made. Going to the range with him multiple times a week for the league was nothing short of special, especially looking back at it now. The constant laughing and tormenting just made it so much sweeter. When we were either shooting up top or going through the course, we were doing what we both loved. And although he always said, shoot against yourself, that's how you'll get better, well, I'd always try to outshoot him, which only happened a couple times. Other than that, he flat out smoked me. One thing that he always liked to brag about was the fact that every team that has won the league has had at least one tower on it. He was very proud of that. Uncle Steve was a great teacher, and it was something that he really enjoyed to do. Whether it was at the Fish and Game Club doing hunter education or at Bass Pro Shops teaching new people how to shoot, it did not take a rocket scientist to know how much he loved what he did. And honestly, I think he really liked working with the youth more than the adults. Just seeing the faces of the kids light up and seeing them jump around in excitement was something that he looked forward to at work. He loved to see new kids getting into the sport, knowing that the sport was going to be carried on for generations to come. If any of you have worked with him or even just had a 5-minute conversation with him, you knew that he was just this outgoing, kind, funny, respectful, and most genuine person you were ever going to meet. He always found a way to connect with everyone, and it did not matter who you were or where you were from. Although Steve is no longer with us, I know that he will always be looking down with his signature shit-eating grin, guiding us to new horizons. for Aunt Nancy, Yaya, Carrie, Karen, Uncle Mark, and Dad, I am so sorry for your loss. I love you guys down to the bottom of my heart. If you ever just need someone to talk to, just know my phone is always on. It doesn't matter the time of day or night it is, I am always here, you guys. Always. And for you, Uncle Steve, I miss you already more than you could ever know. Not only have you taught me so much about hunting and fishing and all those things, thank you for teaching me what it is like to not take life too seriously. And thank you for helping my dad and the rest of my family mold me into the person that I am standing here today. I love you so much, and I will see you again someday. But wait, there's one last thing for you. I have a little favor. If you don't mind, could you guide a doe-eyed little deer my way so I can whack him with one of those new arrows you bought me? That'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I'll ask Stephen's mother-in-law, Joan, to share the fireman's prayer.
First of all, I want to say that I am so proud that he was my son-in-law. I'm very, very proud. I cannot improve on any of the accolades that everybody has offered, but I will say the fireman's prayer. When I am called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me embrace a little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and to give the best in me, to guard my every neighbor and protect his property. And if according to my fate I am to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my family, friend, and wife. And I do want to say, unfortunately, today is Kerry's birthday. Please wish him a happy birthday. Thank you.
And I ask the chief of Goffstown Fire to share some words.
Good morning. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance this morning. It's truly an honor and a privilege, and I'm very humbled to be able to say a few words today. We're all here to celebrate the life of a man who touched each and every one of us. Steve had many passions in life, and I'd like to touch on a couple of them. The outdoorsman. Steve shared his love for the outdoors with many of us. He was an avid hunter and fisherman. He enjoyed teaching hunter safety courses and tying flies. He also loved working for Bass Pro Shop and the relationships he had with his coworkers and his customers. I would ask, if you're an outdoorsman, carry on where Steve left off and introduce someone new to hunting and fishing. The firefighter. Steve was at his best. He was training the men and women of the fire service. He wanted each of us to love the job as much as he did. Steve would ensure that you do your job inside and out, and would take the time to show you if you weren't sure what to do. Steve has mentored hundreds of firefighters across the state of New Hampshire. Our fire service members here today, please remember to share the knowledge of the job to the next generation. Take time to teach each other. This is what Steve would want us to do. Finally, the family man. Steve had a saying, family first. To his mom, Linda, you can be proud that you raised Steve to become the man who positively impacted so many lives. To his brothers, Mark and Derek, Steve treasured his relationship with both of you. To his sons, Gary and Garrett, please know your dad was extremely proud of both of you. He'll always be watching over you. To Nancy, you have love of his life. Steve cherished the bond the two of you had since you were teenagers. I'm glad I had the opportunity to work alongside Steve, but most importantly, I'm fortunate that I was able to call him a friend. Thank you.
We'll now present Stephen's helmets. And while we prepare for that, I want to ask those of you that learned so much from Stephen about archery, what would he have said about today's breeze and how to correct for that? O God, our Father and Mother, we thank you once again for the light, the love, and the life of Stephen. Thank you for the incredible privilege of knowing him. Thank you for the mystery of his life among us, the great gift of our sharing our lives with him. O God, you gave us your greatest gift, Jesus Christ, one who was just like us, yet who chose to see your life, your energy, your power, and your love in everything that you have created and in which you are manifested. Jesus called us all his friends and not his servants. He told us that, like him, we are also manifestations of you, our Lord. We thank you, O God, for this love that you sent into our lives in this incredible person, Stephen Tower. We think of him when we read these words of your Son, Jesus, in the Gospel of Luke. Treat others as you would like people to treat you. Give without thinking of the return. You will have a great reward, and you will be a reflection of the Most High, for the source of all life is kindness. Give, and there will be gifts for you, heaped high, pervasive, and overflowing, and they will be poured into your lap. Because the standard you use will be the standard used for you. Amen. My closing words to you all, if you knew Steve well or a little bit, or you've come to honor this remarkable life because of his being a brother, I ask that you live out his memory by living as he lived, by teaching and by treating others as you would want to be treated. Do it with a grin or a smile, and if you've got it, that fantastic hair. I'll now ask the Fire Marshal, Paul Parisi, to please come for the ringing of the bells.
The last alarm. Throughout most of history, the life of a firefighter has been closely associated with the ringing of a bell. As they began their tour of duty, it was the bell that started it off. Through the day and night, each alarm was sounded by a bell, which called them to fight fire and to place their life in jeopardy for the good of their fellow citizen. When the fire was out and the alarm had come to an end, the bell rang 5 times to signal the all out. Now, in tribute to Captain Stephen Tower and his dedication to the town of Goffstown, the Goffstown Fire Department, and the New Hampshire Fire Service for over 30 years, we will transmit Goffstown Fire Department signal 555.
Dispatch to all personnel. Stand by for a roll call. Goffstown dispatch to Captain Tower. Goffstown dispatch to Captain Tower. Goffstown dispatch to Goffstown Captain Tower. It is with deep regret the Goffstown Fire Department announces the passing of Goffstown Captain Steve Tower. Roll call has been taken, and Captain Tower has failed to answer. Captain Tower has answered his last alarm on August 31st, 2020, and will be deeply missed. Rest easy, Captain. We will take it from here.